Welcome, I'm Ananya Datta and I'm back with another edition of Race to Power. If a WhatsApp forward, an email from your HR or a pink sale notification has not already told you, it is International Women's Day today. So we are focusing on women, not just today, but especially today. Do you remember this picture? Now this is from G7's 2018 summit. Group of 7 is the world's 7 largest economies. It had one woman leader back in 2018, Angela Merkel. If you think it's any better today, it's not. It still has one, Italy's Giorgia Meloni. When we come to India, the country is known for electing its first woman prime minister in the year 1966, Indira Gandhi, before any of the Western countries did. But how far has the country really come? Women make almost half of the electoral roll. Then why do women only make 15% of the House of People? Let's try and understand. All eyes are on the national elections in India that will be held in the first half of this year. And the country's women voters will have a huge say in deciding the mandate. Among the new voters registered for this year's election, as many as 14.1 million are women. Now that figure also happens to be 15% more than the new men voters, which makes the choice for the political parties very clear. Among the benefits that are promised to the women voters, political parties are focusing on cash support for women. For instance, the Aam Aadmi Party and Congress have gone all out to woo the women voters, making the benefits to them part of the budgetary outlays in the states they govern for 2024-25. The Arvind Kejriwal-led AAP government announced Rs 1,000 per month for women above the age of 18 very recently. On the other hand, Congress leader and Himachal Pradesh Chief Minister Sukhwinder Singh Sukhu assured an annual financial assistance of Rs 15,000 to women. Now this was part of the 10 guarantees the Congress promised during the assembly elections in late 2022. Women in Telangana were promised benefits worth up to 4,000 rupees each, or around $48, if Congress was voted to power in the state. Now this was by way of social pension, savings on LPG cylinders and free travel on government buses. In West Bengal on March 6th, the Trinamool Congress increased the remuneration of Asha and Anganwadi workers by Rs 750. That's about $9, and this is for per month. Earlier, Asha and Anganwadi workers used to get around $99 per month. So with this hike, it will be around $108. As for the Bharatiya Janata Party, which is part of the ruling government, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has announced reduction in prices of cooking gas cylinders. They are the most visible attempt to get more women voters who has been through women's reservation bill. The BJP also aims to conduct 11 massive outreach programs in 70 days that will be completed before March 15th. Additionally, the party is mapping out a strategy to make women's self-help groups aware of the schemes and programs being run by the government. Now, to get us more perspective on India's women voters, we are now being joined by senior journalist Aditi Phadnis. Ms. Phadnis, thank you so much for joining us here on WION. I want to ask you straight up, how crucial do you think women voters will become in this year's general election in India?
Well, as always, women voters are a very, very important constituency. In 2014, they came out in very large numbers to vote with both hands for Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Many of them had differences at home. The common myth is that women vote the way men tell them to vote.
Right.
This is a myth. There are many families where the men vote differently and the women vote differently, and they put this on on test in 2014 and again in 2019, and I think the same thing is going to happen this time as well.
Ms. Phadnis, do you think India has able to bridge the gap between going from policy benefiters to policy makers?
Well, it's hard to say. At this point, a lot is being made of the 100 rupee cut, for instance, in cooking gas. Now, the cost of one cylinder of cooking gas has gone up enormously. And every woman I speak to says it is prohibitively expensive now. So, frankly, a 100 rupee cut is not going to make that much difference. But that apart, it's not just cost of the implements and the tools that women work with in the kitchen, which is important. It is also an overall sense of security and overall sense of being valued for their contribution to society, for their empowerment. And on these counts, I think they are probably quite enthused by, say, the Yogi Adityanath government in UP, by the Aam Aadmi Party government in Delhi, and so many other decisions that they feel have really empowered them. Any bus, any public transport, any bus you see in the morning will be packed with women and children,
Right.
women taking their children to school. So it's pretty heartening to see that, because travel for women in Delhi is free now.
Right. Ms. Fadnis, of course, India has a long way to go in terms of equality and all of that. But when it comes to politics, politics has been a sector where male have dominated for a really long time, not just in India, but rest of the globe. But do you think India can send out a message to the world on this International Women's Day when it comes to Indian leaders in politics?
Well, I mean, there have been many women leaders in politics, and uh, they have performed exceedingly well. Uh, you asked a question about policy. Uh, Policy makers who are women are pretty shrewd and pretty intelligent in the way they make policy. We have the chief of SEBI, who is a woman. You have the former foreign minister, who was a woman. You have, I mean, there are so many examples of women politicians. I think the full flowering of women will probably happen after a few initial glitches in 2029, which is the likely date for that the reservation of seats for women will kick in. You will see, I think, a big push for women policymakers, and not just by the nominal decision of appointing women in high places, but actually seeing women policies which support women.
All right, Ms. Fadnis, thank you so much for speaking with us. It was a pleasure speaking to you. Next up, let's hear it from our first-time women voters on their expectations from the next ruling government.
I want the next ruling party, whoever it comes, I want them to provide a platform where we are heard, we are valued, our opinions are valued. So being a science student, the current, I think, scenario needs to focus on environment, in my opinion. The infrastructural development must go hand in hand with environment. I would like to, tell you, like the I would say Mr. Gadkari has been doing pretty well in regards of making roads and development. But how do we balance that out with the environmental factors? Suppose I recently heard about a road being made through Corbett National Park. And does that really go hand in hand with their policies and focusing on the environmental protection and saving that?
Like, I definitely feel that the government has a responsibility in making those decisions that are actually benefiting our nation even more. Currently, I feel that there's a lot of regional politics going on in our country, but I think if the budget is more and the government is more dedicated towards other important things like employment. Yes, there are provisions right now, but these are the areas that need more focus. Employment, eradicating the gender inequalities and the income inequalities, the schemes that are beneficial for everyone. And being youth, I personally want that the employment schemes should be under more emphasis, because that's about our future, and moreover greater emphasis should be given to the education of all the people present in our country. So the more and more people get educated, the better it would be for our nation. So if the government actually looks in these areas, that would be a very good thing for us.
The person whom I'm voting should be diligent, should be answerable to what the questions the people usually ask, and they should be answerable to the audience. Yes, of course, they should be listening to, they should be a good listener.
Women voters in India are now at the forefront that their turnout has been steadily increasing with every election. Women currently make up for nearly half of India's electorate, and according to reports, they will surpass male voters in the year 2029. But their representation is far from proportional. Women currently comprise only 15% of lawmakers in the parliament and 10% in the state assemblies. Let's first look at our best scenarios among parties with more than 10 seats in Lok Sabha. 42% of BJD MPs and 39% of TMC MPs are women. But if we look at the lower house as a whole, women's representation in Lok Sabha has gone from 5% in the first Lok Sabha to 15% in the current Lok Sabha, up by a meager 10%. Just last year, the Indian Parliament cleared the historic bill to reserve 1/3 of the seats in the Lok Sabha and state assemblies for women. The bill is called the Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam. Prime Minister Modi had hailed it as a defining moment in the nation's democratic journey. But this reservation of seats will only come into effect after the delimitation exercise is undertaken. But until then, this is what we stand with. In 2019, 30 crore women voted to choose their representatives, but the women representing them are only 78. Stepping into politics and making a mark for yourself is not an easy feat. The challenge is tougher for women, especially when it comes to a country's power center. But every once in a while, women have broken the glass ceiling while challenging the status quo. The same holds true for India's women political leaders. This next story celebrates the firsts in India's political history.
Indira Gandhi, first woman Prime Minister of India. Term served 1966 to 1977 and 1980 to 1984. Pratibha Patil, first woman President of India. Term served 2007 to 2012. Sucheta Kriplani, first woman Chief Minister in India. Headed government of Uttar Pradesh. Term served 1963 to 1967. Sushma Swaraj, first woman Foreign Minister of India. Term served 2014 to 2019. Nirmala Sitharaman, first woman Defence Minister of India after Indira Gandhi. Term served 2017 to 2019. First woman Finance Minister of India. Term served 2019 to 2024. Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay, first woman to contest elections in India. Contested polls from Madras Presidency in 1926. Sarojini Naidu, first woman to hold position of party president, elected as party chief of Indian National Congress in 1925. Annie Mascarenhas, first woman to serve as a member of parliament, elected as parliamentary leader during 1951 general elections.
Now, women represent half of India's electorate. Their vote can make or break the fortunes of political parties. No wonder women are key vote bank for them. Today, we look at how the political class is wooing women with welfare schemes.
Political parties in India seem to agree on the need to empower women to ensure growth and success. Over the years, the need to woo women voters has resulted in several measures that have worked to improve the lives of women. In recent years, one of these key initiatives launched by the central government includes the Sukanya Samriddhi Yojana. This scheme aims for the financial empowerment of a girl child. It allows parents or legal guardians to ensure financial security for a girl child aging 10 years or below. Under the scheme, an account in the name of the girl can be opened across any of the private and public sector banks for 21 years. The Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana provides easy access to loans for women micro-entrepreneurs. As per the Finance Ministry, a total of 306.4 million loans under the scheme were given to women as of November 2023. This comprises of 69% of the total sanctioned loans. Scale India Mission focuses on equipping women with industry-relevant skills. It seeks to make them more employable and competitive in the job market. Over 3 million women have benefited through this mission. Then there is Beti Padhao, Beti Bachao. That means save the girl child, educate the girl child. Launched in 2015, this scheme aims to stop the decline in the girl-sex ratio and generate awareness. It also seeks to improve welfare services for girls. Over the years, the scheme has gained massive appeal and outreach. It is bringing the issue of gender discrimination into focus. Some of the key initiatives for women have been launched by the state governments as well, like Mission Shakti in Uttar Pradesh. The scheme was launched in phases. One of the key focus was building more classrooms across villages. It led to the formation of 100,000 women self-help groups and has linked over 150,000 new beneficiaries to the Destitute Women Pension Scheme. There is also the Kanya Utthan Yojana in Bihar that encourages women in the state to pursue higher education. For this, the government compensates them with roughly around $605 till they complete their graduation. Apart from this, other state governments have also rolled out schemes to address specific issues faced by women to uplift them. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Will women have a right to vote in independent India? This was perhaps the only question on which every member of the Constituency Assembly post-1947 was on the same page. Independent India will have universal adult suffrage. The makers of modern India cast this in stone in the late 1940s. In the very first general elections in independent India, the emphasis was on persuading women to exercise their right to vote. But this was the year 1952. Only 18% of India's 350 million people were literate. Women literacy was at an abysmal 8%. To top it, most of the women were still limited to the traditional and conventional confines of their homes. India's first election commissioner, Sukumar Sendhus, had the mammoth task of not only educating the population of the electoral process, but also to persuade women to come out of their homes to vote. After an intense awareness effort, the Election Commission brought over 80 million women on the nation's first ever electoral roll. But the names of 2.8 million women had to be struck off. You ask why? Simply because they were not names in the conventional sense at all. A whopping 2.8 million women in central and eastern India were registered as so-and-so's wife, so-and-so's mother, and so-and-so's daughter. After all this, how they used to be addressed in their communities is exactly this. Even those registered with proper names could not come to vote. We do not have an official women turnout figure from 1952. The earliest available data is from 10 years later, when only 46% registered women voters came out to vote. The number for 1952 was far less, as opposed to a 46% turnout for women in 1962 polls. The turnout among men was 63% that year. Over the years, the gap between the turnouts between men and women has not only reduced, but has actually reversed, although marginally. In the last 2019 election, the percentage of women coming out to vote was 0.17% more than the male turnout. Women voters are now a formidable force in Indian elections. No party can afford to leave out women-centric policies out of their manifestos. The Indian Prime Minister has now made women part of what he calls the four main castes of India. It explains why women could only get a considerable space in the mainstream politics so late, and it goes without saying that the share is not yet fair. As we have said, it is clear that women are emerging as the change makers. Whether you call her a caste or a silent voter, women will surpass male voters from the year 2029. So it's time we transform them from policy benefiters to policy makers. And with that, it's a wrap on our special Women's Day edition of Race to Power. I'm Ananya Datta, signing off.
The next episode of World of Africa, Chad's interim president Mahamat Idris Deby Itno confirms his candidature in this year's long-awaited presidential race. His